Hi, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. I wanted to do a book tag for you. I wanted to do the book addiction book tag. Now, this tag's a couple months old, so I'm a little bit late. I saw it on Sean Standfast's channel back on April 29th, and the original was done by Elaine Howland. And so just wanted to get this tag done, and I have a whole list of tags that I see a neat idea, and I take the questions, and I have like a Google Doc that I have all of the questions and the tags all put together, and so I have a whole bunch of them. And I know there's some of you out there that have tagged me, and I need to get those tags done. They're on the list, and I apologize for not getting those done. But anyway, this morning we're filming from a different location. My wife decided to paint in the book room, and so instead of getting in her way this morning, I decided to come here on the back porch and do the video. So anyway, here we go, the book addiction book tag. Question number 1: what is the longest amount of time you can go without picking up a book? For me, typically I read every morning if I can. There are some mornings I just don't feel like reading, so it would be easy to say that once or twice a week in the morning I don't end up reading. Probably once a week. But if we talk about the longest span of time that I've ever that I go, 2 to 3 days when it gets busy in the school year in a row. It doesn't happen all that often, and I feel like my life is off when that happens. So it doesn't happen all that often, but the only other time that I could think of was when my family goes on vacation. Sometimes, depending on the vacation and where exactly we're at, sometimes taking a book with you you may take it, but you don't end up reading it. And that just sometimes happens. I know when we go to see my sister-in-law, I take a book, but she's got twins that are younger. I've got my kids, and sometimes reading just doesn't happen. And so anyway, question number 2: how many books do you carry on your person or Kindle at any one time? For me, I don't carry books around with me. As a guy, that's kind of awkward. I think a woman can probably get a paperback in her purse pretty easy, and that would not be a problem. But for a guy, it just doesn't work out real well. And I don't read electronically, so I don't like reading off of my phone. So on my person, probably none. I know that's sad to say, but probably none. Now, if I'm going somewhere where I know there's going to be a lot of downtime, such as I shared with you earlier this year when we go to my daughter's speech contest, I always take a book with me because I know there's going to be downtime. But I also have a whole backpack, so I don't have to carry it around. But just on a regular basis, probably none. Number 3: do you keep every book you buy or receive, or are you happy to pass them along? For me, that really just depends on what type of book it is. My nonfiction books, I typically tend to keep all of them, for the most part anyway. I don't get rid of very many nonfiction. Could probably count on one hand in the last 4 or 5 years how many I've gotten rid of. And it's usually because they're doubles, not because I didn't like them. I still keep the ones even if I didn't entirely like it. Now, fiction books are a totally different thing for me. I have gotten rid of a lot of my fiction books. If I think there's going to be a reread, I keep it. But if it's a book I just didn't like, I get rid of it. I have no problem passing that along. Question number 4: how long would you spend in a bookshop on a standard visit? For me, it depends on a few things. I can't just straight up answer this question. First of all, which bookshop is it? Because certain bookshops are bigger or better than others. So, certain ones have better selections. For me, I like to shop at used bookshops, and so if they don't have a high turnover, then sometimes it doesn't take me very long to get through their shelves, and I'll be done. But ones that have a high turnover, that, it takes me a little bit longer. Depends on how much time do I have, or how, maybe I should say, how much time has my wife given me on this shopping trip? We like to joke about that. How much money do I have? And so, those little things depend, because if I don't have a lot of money, I don't want to spend a ton of time in there. I'm going to go in and find what I want and then leave, because then it just leaves me longing, to go back, and then, it leads to all kinds of other issues. But if you want a standard answer, I would say half hour. Half hour would be a good answer. If I've got a lot of time on my hands, I could easily spend, an hour, hour and a half. But a half hour, if everybody's leaving me alone and letting me do my thing, I can kind of go through, in my used bookshops, I can kind of go through the shelves fairly quickly. Number 5, how much time per day do you actually spend reading? I would say at least a couple, if not 3 hours, is how much I get. Again, it depends on the time of year. If it's during the school year, when my school stuff and then coaching and everything else, of course that time's going to be a lot smaller. It might be an hour and a half. But during the summer, or during during all this time we've had off, that number could easily go up. If I'm up at 4 in the morning and the girls don't get up till 8 o'clock, there's 4 hours right there. And then my daughter takes a nap in the afternoon, or we like to pretend she's taking a nap. There's an hour and a half, 2 hours more. And then if I am feeling real good about myself and I actually read before bed instead of just falling asleep like I did last night, there could be another hour there, hour and a half there. So, that all depends. But if I gave you a solid answer, I'd say at least 2 hours, if not 3. Number 6, where does the task of picking up a book appear on your daily to-do list? Again, I just kind of answered that. My daily list I start at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, depending on when I get up, and then I will read during the school year, it'll be 4 to 6. 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. During the summer, it's till 8 o'clock. And then, in the mid-afternoon, 2 to 4 o'clock, somewhere in there, I'm getting some reading time. And then 9:30 to 11:30, I get some reading time in there. But definitely that 4 a.m. time slot, that's where I get my best reading done. That's when I read my nonfiction. My mind works much, much better in the morning than it does in the afternoon. Number 7. How many books do you reckon you own in total, including ebooks? Well, my ebooks is easy. I only have like 2. I don't read ebooks. I don't care for it. Nothing against people that do. I know there's a lot of people out there that like them, and a lot of my kids at school like them. I don't. I just don't care for them. But for me here at home, in my house, I would say easily 200 to 300 fiction, which, that number may be even higher. I have no idea. I've never counted them, and I've gotten rid of a lot of them. But my nonfiction is probably around 1,200 or so, and I'd like that number to be higher, but having space in the house is an issue. So if I had a total number, at least 1,500 books is my guess. At least 1,500. Number 8. Excuse me. Approximately how often do you bring up books in conversation? Now, where I live, and the people that I'm around in my daily life, there's not a lot of, they're not avid book readers. They read some, but not like I do. And, since being on BookTube, I've also realized that I don't read like I thought I did. Some of you read way more than I do. But where I'm at and the people I'm around, they don't read nearly as often as I do. So I tend to bring it up a lot more than they do. And it's funny because in our conversations, I'll start talking about a book, and sometimes there's just this awkward silence where they're just, and it's just not something that gets brought up in everyday conversation around here. And but what I have found is all the people that are around me have figured out that I love to read, and I talk about books. I could talk about books a lot. And what I found is they either they are reading and I didn't know it, and now they're open to bringing it up. I found them bringing up books a lot more, and it's making that conversation a lot easier. So it's a lot of fun. So how often do I bring it up? I don't know if I have a number for that, but I bring it up quite often. Even at baseball practice, I'll talk about what I'm reading with baseball coach as the kids are, getting warmed up. I mean, I do stuff like that. Number 9, what is the biggest book, page count wise, that you have finished? I was trying to think. I know I've read, and I couldn't think of what book it was, but it was over 1,200 pages. But because I couldn't think of what it was, I know I read and finished The Stand by Stephen King, and that was 1,152 pages. So for now, that'll be my answer. But I am not sure. I don't know what the exact number is, and what book it was the biggest. But that's a pretty good chunker right there. So number 10, is there a book you had to get your hands on against all odds? Okay, so for me, you guys that follow the channel know that I make book lists all the time. And so I have got books that I have looked at over the years that have been on all of those lists, and those are my ones that I need to get. And so I collect used books, so it works out perfect when I'm looking at the bibliographies of the books I'm reading and I'm finding other titles. I collect used books. My problem is I've got to have it, but I don't always order it off of Amazon. A lot of times I wait in the bookshops and I just look and look and look. And much like the Shelby Foote series, that's been on my hit list for at least 10, 15 years, and I finally found it this summer. And so, sometimes I have to have it, but I have to wait. I have to learn to be patient. Let's see. Number 11. A book you struggled to finish but refused to DNF. Okay, so for me, it was the recent James Michener book. And struggling to finish was nothing to do with the book itself. It was all me. When I tried to read it that first time, which was 4 or 5 years ago, if not maybe even more than that. But anyway, the first time I tried to read it, it was during the busy part of the school year. I picked it up, put it on my nightstand, and I was reading a little bit here and a little bit there. And it's a big book. And what I found was I was in the busy part of the year, and I couldn't dedicate enough time to read it. That's just, sometimes that's just how it is. And so I was really frustrated with that. I was struggling to finish it just because it was so big, and I just didn't have enough time. So this summer, I just finished the book. I dedicated June to getting that thing finished, and I'm really glad I did. Really glad I did not DNF that thing. It was a really good book, and it has a lot of pretty cool themes running through the book. Themes that actually run into today. But anyway, we don't need to get into that. So that's a book that I did struggle to finish, but I made it a point to finish it this June, and I got it done. So, number 12, last one. Last question. What are 3 of your main book goals for the year? Okay, so I had 3 top goals for myself. I've been reading several trilogies, like biography trilogies, and Sidney Blumenthal's Lincoln series, and it's gonna end up being, there's 3 that are out right now, but there's gonna end up being more. But I have those 3, and I really wanted to get that first one done, and I did that. I've checked that off on my list. My next 2 are the Richard Nixon trilogy by Stephen Ambrose. And the last 2 summers, 2 summers ago, I read Volume 1. Last summer, I did Volume 2. And so it was my goal to get Volume 3 done in July. So I hopefully will be starting that maybe in a couple weeks. And I've been wanting to finish up that trilogy. It was good. Very interesting. I learned a lot about the guy that I didn't know. And then the last one is the Theodore Roosevelt trilogy by Edmund Morris. And I have not started that. This will be the first volume of that trilogy. We were doing a read-along on Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft, and it really kind of fueled that fire to get back to this trilogy that I had not started yet. And so those are my 3 main reading goals, one of which I have accomplished, and I hope to get at least the second one accomplished this month. And so this has been the Book Addiction book tag. Again, I saw it on Sean Standfast. I'll put the link down below. And I also saw the original on Elaine Howland's page, and I'll put the link to that down below. Again, sorry about taking so long. I know this was clear back at the end of April when this was created, and a lot of people were doing it, but you know, sometimes that's just how it goes. But BookTube, I appreciate you watching. I hope you have a great day. Happy reading.